Faswall has been used in over 1,000 building projects across the country. Our insulated wood chip cement blocks are used in many types of buildings, from ADUs to very large high-end homes and commercial buildings. Additionally, Faswall has been used on many fire rebuild projects as it has an ASTM 4-hour fire rating. This project is a recent example of a high-end home in Western Oregon, currently in process by Opus Vitae, a Western Oregon construction company. It was filmed during an open house in December 2024 for architects to learn about building with Faswall.
This material meets a lot of people in the world of chemical sensitivities and different other sensitivities really well. So we've been used for many years by leading architects.
You take those principles and you have the passive house thing that is now starting to realize that, the materials that you used matter. Not so much just performance, but also the health of the people working with it, the people living in the house afterwards. And so it's becoming much more where those two things are starting to fit together.
Mm-hmm.
The building biology thing, though, can have some components to it that seem a little woo-woo to some people. That it can turn some people off. So we try and be like, hey, listen, let's take the good of everything and sort of make the best.
Yeah.
So on this structure, we've got the Faswall exterior assembly, and we went with the poly ISO insulation jacket. So it's an R25, 26, yeah. And then it'll get a brick veneer. The roof assembly is all a non-vented roof assembly where the insulation layer lives on top of the first layer of sheathing, and then it has a secondary layer of sheathing on top of that. So it's kind of like a SIP panel built on site. And so we're R49 with all of that. So the house is effectively entirely insulated at this point.
Thanks so much.
So let me see. So the SIPS wall, or the wall system, has a piece of rigid inside the foam or inside the form.
Mm-hmm.
And then do you have another layer of continuous on the outside, or is it just the...
That is on the outside, basically. So you've got we'll see the blocks in there.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I saw it was all covered up. I was like...
How does it go up?
So it stacks.
Okay. So
Dry stacked.
Got it.
No thin set, no mortar, just dry stack.
No, we chose to.
And how does that work seismically then?
So once you're putting rebar in it horizontally and vertically, and then once you pour it with concrete, it fills cells and it creates like this grid.
Got it.
matrix.
So the concrete's on the inside.
Yeah, it's like in the center basically.
Yeah.
And the insulation layers to the outside. So
Right.
it's got a thermal mass core, then an insulation jacket kind of built into the system.
And then what we're seeing is this is wood chip with something.
This is a hardwood, softwood mix that's been mildly petrified or mineralized and then bound together with cement.
And that makes it like rot resistant, moisture resistant, everything or something.
Yep, and very fire
Fire resistant too because it's a mineral reason.
Yes, it's virtually kind of mummified and petrified, so it's got a 4-hour fire rating, but that's just the composite. Then it's got insulation, so the concrete core is very well protected.
So we recycle pallets, old pallets that are no longer serviceable, they're shredded, denailed, and then we take that wood and chip it down to the size we need, and then condition it with this mineralization process, which is largely a very fine-grained clay suspension that we impregnate into the wood fiber, and after which it sticks very well to concrete at that point. Normally wood and concrete, right? They don't like to stick together. So once it's mineralized, it's like a mineral tie coat that then the mineral-based concrete adheres well to. We're very porous, so the blocks are very vapor transmissive, hygroscopic, and we don't wick water like CMUs. If you had water at the base of that wall, it would wick up the wall, and that wall would be all dark with moisture. And it's simply because our pores are too big. We don't have capillary water movement through the block.
Interesting.
And it's just applied straight to the Faswall?
Yep.
Okay.
With a mesh? Just like a traditional 3-part or 3-layer?
Right. It is. So yeah, they do a mesh in there.
So is that like you typically need to do a plaster with this
You do. 'Cause you have to have some way of air sealing it as well as leaving it vapor outside.
Yeah.
To keep the vapor permeability such that you're having a thermal mass component here, but you also have a hydric mass where it absorbs and releases vapor. So it regulates humidity in your house. That's one of the highest comfort things that people find. And in Europe, it's kind of standard to think about. So that you're regulating humidity through your mucous membranes and for your general health, but also your art and your antiques and your cigars. And
Now, the reason we're doing it is because we realize we can offer clients things like super quiet structures, super high indoor air quality. We can provide extreme thermal comfort because we've got that separation between indoor and outdoor. People are still in general looking for a beautiful structure, and they haven't stopped to consider that there are other values that they might want out of the structure. Or they assume that those other values are being already thought about by the professionals behind the scenes.
People love like final finishings, in their homes, or it's like such a personal thing to them that often, this behind the scenes piece,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't
gets
matter.
covered up, largely. And so,
To that point, we're a thick product. So we're 12 inches and finished 13, 14 inches. So deep sills, so that aesthetic, usually people like that. They like that look with inset windows like that. We're here today with a company called Opus Vitae, and they're located here in Western Oregon. They're a construction company doing renovation and new home construction. I'm with two of the three partners today, and they opened up this gorgeous project to architects today and invited us, the Faswall folks, to be here as part of it. It was a really dynamic meeting here. I really appreciate you guys making the time.
Of course.
It was more than just a tour of a pretty project. We got into issues, we got into energy efficiency and health and all kinds of fundamental building issues. So it's well worth the time. But I did want to ask you guys about, you're recent to Faswall in the last year or so. And we wanted to understand how you got to the place of using our product. Like, how did you find out about it, and why did you kind of move in our direction to use our product?
For us, it was an architect had brought it to our attention. Okay. And I had told the story earlier about, he goes, yeah, there's this ICF product. And I'm like, ICF, I don't like that. And he's like, no, it's different. And I'm like, sure it is. And he didn't give up, which was to his credit why we're here. Because he's like, no, Kevin, really look at it. I'm like, okay, I did. And so I did a deep dive, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is way different than your typical ICF. It's so much better. And this is exciting. And so he was designing a project that we actually didn't build using that in there. And I was on board with it. We were going to build it. And then for whatever reason, we ended up not building. And then I had approached that same architect and said, hey, we're ready to build our own house, and we want to use the Faswall product. And he's like, great, I have another project that I want to build for myself using Faswall, so let's join forces here. And, you build this project, I'll design your project, and we'll go from there. And so that's why we're here. Having that been said, in working with this product, I would not want to build another house and not use this product personally. I realize that that's an impossible goal because there's some people that may not find value in this. But from my perspective, once I know this exists and how well it works, I don't want to go back to something else. I mean, to me, it's like sort of like, once you've driven a car, you don't want to go back to a horse and buggy. So
Interesting. You have a building biology background, I think. You did the certification,
I did, yes.
building
Yeah.
biology. And did Faswall check a lot of boxes in that whole perspective of building biology? And was that one of the reasons you came to that conclusion?
So I was already in love with Faswall before I went through my building biology training. Yes, it does check a lot of boxes in the building biology world, and it's actually something that in the coursework they do talk about Faswall particularly by name. And in my last in-person trainings or school session, we were asked, like, what building system would you prefer to use and why and stuff. And for me, it was the insulated concrete composite wall, because I found it to be the best of all of them. Not that like rammed earth isn't great and has some great attributes, but it's not something that's easily repeatable, and it's not like mass producible. To me, it's like you have the magic unicorn of like something that like, is environmentally wonderful in all categories, but it's almost impossible to build. Or you can do a one-off with a bunch of friends that are really into it, but if you're going to have to charge for your time to build that for a customer, like there's no way that anybody would spend that kind of money. And to me, Faswall like sort of fit that thing of, yes, we can do it in a production world, and it's not overly expensive to prohibit us from doing that. And it has so many positive attributes that it's just a win-win-win.
The other huge change we touched on in the meeting earlier is just fire safety, and especially here in the West, and now nationwide, unfortunately, more and more wildfires. And the insurance challenges that are mounting in areas are elevating risk assessments. And you are very cognizant of that, and you're designing around fire safety now.
We are. It's a big part of the conversation now, where 5 years ago, it just really wasn't, unless you happen to be in the heavily forested area that maybe, right? But now it's sort of being talked about a lot. And, we as builders have to be thinking about that and be ahead of the curve so that we can steer our clients in a direction that's going to make their house insurable, or insurable in a halfway reasonable, price point.
And also, it's not only fire resiliency, it's also smoke in houses. So Faswall also becomes part of the envelope that allows us to have a very airtight building that's going to stay that way for a long time, so that we can mechanically ventilate houses and run them through the filtration systems necessary so that people could be in a house near wildfires and still be very comfortable.
Yeah. Another thing we touched on is thermal comfort, and the study is out now with high mass walls providing greater thermal comfort, and windows just highly important for thermal comfort, and having that combination of high performance windows like these and high performance walls, and bringing that together in a design.
Yes.
Where you had pointed out, hey, you can invest in all the air sealing and all the wall system details you want, and if you skimp on the windows, you've practically defeated the purpose.
You have. You literally just spent a whole bunch of money on fun stuff, and yeah. So it kills me how our industry is so unaware of that, right? And so typically, if I back up 6 years, and 6 years ago, if I was meeting with a client, we're talking about doing a big piece of glass like this, they're only concerned to be color and how it functioned. That's it. There was no thought about, well, is this going to be uncomfortable or whatever? And now we know that, yes, that will be uncomfortable unless it's triple glazed and thermally broken, frame and all that stuff. And that's worlds of different apart, because again, best wall in the world means nothing if that isn't well insulated also.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us today. Really appreciate it, and appreciate your support of our product.
Of course, and you will have our ongoing support because we really believe in it. So
wonderful.
And we can't do what we do if you're not in business. So.
All right. That's right. Great. Thanks again.
Yeah, of course.